So we have Professor Margareta James with us today, who is a behavioral and emotional well-being specialist. And she also teaches at Hult. She teaches leadership and the customer journey and like helping with the career journey at Hult. Professor James has a background in psychology and neuroscience, and she leverages that to ensure that our current leaders and our future leaders, how they can get their results by maximizing their potential and their overall well-being. Professor James has worked with multiple organizations globally, and of course has decades of experience as a professional development counselor, coach, speaker, mentor, you name it. In addition to all of this, she also actually is the founder and director of the Harley Street Wellbeing Clinic in the UK. Professor James's method is, of course, has a lot to do with personal experiences and real life experiences. And along with that, years and years of study and research. Currently, the research that Professor James is actually interested in is understanding the difference between people who are successful and just in general about happiness and confidence and what role does that play with people in their career trajectory. So without further ado, I will pass it on to Margareta James. If anyone has any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A box below and drop in your questions throughout. And we will have a Q&A session at the end where we'll try and address as many questions as possible. Professor James also shared with us a list of documents that we can go through later. And I will send that to you in the chat below. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm really excited to be here with you all today, because I think this is a very important topic that we are going to be talking about, confidence. And I think this is really timely and relevant as well, especially that obviously we had been globally going through a very strange time for all of us, where we had to kind of step back from our daily routines, step back from what we had been doing. And we needed to kind of slightly reshuffle, rethink our lives. And now we are trying to kind of go back to some sort of normality. And that involves actually going into face-to-face meetings again, going to do things like we used to. But we had this kind of long period of break from what we call normality and what we consider normality, and we know that it all affects on our confidence. So as most of you will experience, as most of you will know, confidence is something that we all need. There's not one person in the world who doesn't need confidence to do things. And today I wanted to talk to you about something that some things and some tips that you can take away from this talk today, because science and psychology and neuroscience is giving us an insight into what confidence actually is, how we can learn it, and what you can do every day to grow your confidence. This is a topic very close to my heart, because when I teach at Hult, and when I work with people outside of Hult in my consultancy, I get asked this question a lot. How can I increase my confidence? How can I become more confident? And this is a question that people keep going back to. Confidence is not something that you can just wake up and feel, and certain days you feel more confident and other days you don't. This is something that you can develop on an ongoing basis, but for you to keep feeling confident, you need to work on this. This is continuous work. It's like going to the gym. If you don't go for a while, your muscles will start to show the signs of you not working out. So this is something that you can continuously practice, and there are certain things now and practical things that we know that we can all do to essentially keep feeling more confident through our lifetime. And this is something that we can all learn, which is the great news. So if for a moment you imagine that there was something that could make you happier, more motivated, more popular, and in leadership roles, which we talk about a lot at Hult, you know, you become more influential. How would you invent it? How would you invent this thing that would make you more motivated, more, you know, more influential? How would you invent something like this? Well, we don't need to invent it. It already exists, right? So we know that there's strong scientific evidence for how confidence makes us do all these things better. And confidence is not self-esteem. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later on. People confuse confidence with hoping for the best, with being optimistic, with having self-esteem. But confidence is not these things. It is related to these things, but it's not self-esteem. It's not hoping. It is something that empowers us to take the first step in whatever it is that we try to do and then keep going. So my intention for today's talk is to support you to understand more about confidence. So, and also to give you some tools and techniques that you can use when we finish this talk, so you can actually start to implement this in your day-to-day life. What I do at Hult is I teach leadership, and I teach the customer journey in marketing. And we talk about a lot of these skills that you can actually develop from day one by you practicing them. So I'm going to bring in some knowledge and some scientific evidence from psychology and neuroscience to support you through this journey. So let's have a look at what confidence is. So what we know from the past, scientists and philosophers really started to think about what makes human beings different, right? And they tended to assume that we are different from animals and various other species on the planet because we have the capacity for language, for problem solving, we can work together in teams, we have the ability to collaborate, we can feel empathy towards others. But through decades of research, we know that various animal species that have shown the exact same capacities as these. So these are not things that make us specifically different from other species. So what is it that makes us different? Well, step back for a second now and take a moment to think about something that you want to create in your future. And I want you to just really take a minute to think about something that you want to create either in your personal future or you want your community to have this. And you can see it happening in the future. And you can start to plan towards this. Take your time, take a moment to do this. This is a very important part of being a human being, but this is also a very important part of being in business, because In business, we do the same thing. So we think of something that we would like to see become a reality, and you can then start to take steps towards building it. So what is it that you would like to see happen in the future? And I invite you guys to share in the chat, if you want, some of these ideas that you would like to see happen in the future. So think of your future and something you would like to see happen, that you would like to see become a reality. And then for either for yourself or your communities, and think about what it would be like for you to do this. Well, I'm getting some really interesting things here. A crime-free world, building my own personal brand, see the pandemic come to an end. I agree. I think all of us would like to see that. Positive changes in your community. In business, we do the same things. Think about this. How do you build a business from scratch? I work with entrepreneurs, and they have a dream. Before they set up their businesses, they have a dream for a company. They have a dream in terms of how they would be working together, and how they would be creating something that is going to be leaving a legacy, perhaps for the future, for their children, for the next generations. It's really, really interesting when you start talking to people who set up their own companies, how it all starts with a dream. So this exactly, why I asked you to do this is because this is exactly what makes us different from other species. There's this one ability to imagine things that do not exist or do not exist yet, and we bring them into existence. So in other words, we work towards creating something that is non-existent in the current world, okay? But it involves creating a mental model of it and to create the imagined future step by step for starting from the present moment. And in order to translate that into reality, we need confidence, which is the fuel we need to bridge the gap between imagination and reality. So you bring in the future into the present moment, and start working from the present moment towards the imagined future. So there's a real difference between us and other species that can't do this. We have the ability to create a future that we can imagine and we can dream and bring that future into reality. Think about a lot of inventions. Think about inventions like the airplane, the Wright brothers, when they imagined human beings one day being able to fly. These days, we take it for granted. We get on an airplane and we fly to a completely different part of the world. Back in those days, the Wright brothers were considered by some people completely mad because they imagined something that didn't exist, but they had the confidence to take steps towards the future, to start to work towards it, no matter what anybody said about it, which is just a really amazing and incredible thing. And these kind of things happen in science, in information technology, every single day. So this is why you can see humans advance at the pace that we advance, because we have the ability to do this. This is an absolutely fantastic thing and resource to really tap into the power of your own mind and your imagination. And what I want you to understand is that there's a real difference between optimism and confidence, okay? First of all, in order to understand optimism, we need to understand pessimism, okay? Now, pessimistic look at things stops you because it makes you suffer pain, even whilst you are imagining failing, okay? So you suffer pain, but you suffer it twice. Why? Because pessimism limits you on focusing on the negative outcomes, and it pains you through kind of anticipating this awful result, and then it pains you again because of your actual experience of going through it. Now, when you think about optimism, an optimistic view, and we can teach ourselves this, an optimistic view, on the other hand, is something that can happen, or something that can happen moves you into an opposite direction, and an opposite direction towards building towards what you want to create, okay? So you can start to take steps towards this opposite effect. So in this case, though, think about this. You get rewarded twice, because why? First, when you expect a successful outcome, you start to imagine the feeling of being able to create that. So immediately you get rewarded, and the brain rewards you with chemicals that helps you feel better, helps you feel more motivated to move towards this successful outcome. And then it rewards you again when you actually experience creating it and when you actually do it. So confidence is what helps us and what distinguishes us human beings from other species. And it's about envisaging something in the future and working towards it and taking steps towards it. So for this session, I want you to invite to start to understand the power of your mind, because your mind influences your biology, your body, and they are intertwined, which means that there are a number of ways you can help yourself become more confident in your everyday life that will have an impact, not just short term, but also in the long term, on your choices, on what opportunities you take, on how you come across when you go for an interview, on how you present yourself. Most importantly, it starts with how you think about yourself and how you talk about yourself. Now, why is this important? There was a study of children looking at their confidence at an early age. And the children at an early age who thought of themselves and their capabilities in a more positive light, there were, even if there was no evidence of them actually doing better at school and in their activities that they were actually doing, these children who thought of themselves better, they made different choices in life. They took, and listen to this, guys, they took courses they needed more courage for, they needed more confidence for, and they thought, yes, I can do this. And therefore, they ended up with opportunities and different opportunities that they wouldn't have had otherwise, that propel them forward in their future. Now, if this is not fascinating, then I don't know what is. So this is not based on their actual performance. This is based on how they thought of themselves and their capabilities. And because they thought of themselves better, they started to make different choices in life, and those different choices opened different doors, and they ended up with opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise had. So when you think about this, actually, it gave them the opportunity to say yeses more. And I want to challenge you today to start saying more yeses to the things you want to bring into your life, and say no confidently to the things that you don't want, where you feel that you're wasting your time. Because I have people who tell me all the time that I find it really difficult to say no, okay? But I'm gonna tell you one thing about saying no. If you continue saying yeses to the things that you don't want to do, the things that you don't want to pursue, and pause and put everything on hold that you actually want to spend your time doing and actually want to focus on, then what's going to happen is by saying yeses to all of these other things, you're essentially saying no to the things that you actually want to focus on. You say no to your future. You say no to all the learnings that you would be getting out of these opportunities and situations. So by saying yes to everything, you say equally at the same time no to everything else. So say yeses to the things that you want to bring into your life, okay? And one of the really interesting things about the mind is this. The mind works on like a daisy chain of associations. There's certain things that are associated throughout, in our minds. So thinking about success will automatically, at some point, bring up thoughts of failure. So if you think about becoming successful at something, if you think about going for an interview and doing really well, there are going to be some thoughts of failure too in the back of your mind. So what can you do with this? How can you keep your thoughts in check? This is all about developing your attention and focusing your attention on the present moment. I want you to think about where you spend your time. Do you spend your time in the past, thinking about what went wrong? Do you spend your time about focusing on the future and worrying about what might go wrong? Or do you actually live in the present moment? And do you actually make choices based on the present moment and the opportunities that the present moment gives you? I really want you to start thinking about where you spend your time. Einstein said that creativity is a residue of time wasted. Now, what he meant by this, obviously, is this magic of human ability to dream, to imagine something that doesn't exist yet, and then take steps to create it, is something wonderful that we can all do. So I want to invite you guys to take time out of your day to dream. Take breaks from your work to let your mind wander. And most importantly, resist giving your mind to mass media and distractions, because we've got so many of them: phones, iPads, calls, everything coming in. Take time out of your day, guys, for yourself, to dream, to think about your future, to think about where you're going, to start creating all of this. I work with some very, very interesting people who we worked on scheduling this into their day. It's like your hammock moment in the day. You take some time out to dream about what you want your life to be and start to take steps towards it, because confidence means starting to action the things that you want to create, starting, no matter how small steps you take, starting with those small steps first. And I really want you to ask some hard questions and look for meaningful answers. I really want you to get out of your comfort zones and seek answers in fields of knowledge that are unfamiliar to you. Because by taking steps outside of your comfort zones, you are going to be increasing your confidence every single day. Now, the same thing applies to motivation, guys. People always say, oh, I don't feel motivated. I feel, I find it really difficult to get going on this because I don't feel motivated enough. Now, we start sometimes in our lives with work that we get very, very excited about, right? So we think, oh my goodness, I got this new position, I got this new job, and I have been given an opportunity to do this. I have been given an opportunity to create, to come up with some ideas, to do what I actually always wanted to do. And then what happens over time is what happens with everything with humans, is that work just becomes what used to be rewarding, just becomes kind of simply work. It's like setting up your gym at home or having a swimming pool at home, and you get really excited about it, and then you keep getting in it for a few weeks, and then it becomes normal. And then it starts to kind of become every day. Okay, and then you don't feel motivated anymore. Now, what I want you to understand about motivation is this. You need to focus on the pleasure of the activity, the pleasure of what you are actually doing, to keep taking yourself back to that moment when you had the opportunity to start to do this, to the excitement, and feel it in your body. Go into every single opportunity meeting with that initial excitement, and you will do so much better. This is critical to motivating yourself, even on days when things are hard, when you need to do things that are really difficult to do, but you have to go through that for you to be able to build a legacy, for you to be able to build that future. If the Wright brothers had given up on the airplanes because they lost motivation, because things started to go difficult, we wouldn't be sitting on airplanes today. I really want you to understand that motivation is something that is in your control. Every single day. And I'm going to give you some insights in terms of how you can do this through the way you talk to yourself, the way you do your self-talk, which to me, the most important talk, because nobody can hear it, but it influences everything you do. And most importantly, it influences everything you think about yourself, that is going to be shaping your identity. And once you start to think about yourself in a permanent way, in a certain way, that is really difficult to change. So you have got to be really careful with the thoughts you think about yourself. So from the perspective of the brain, I want you to remember one thing. And if this is the only thing you remember from today, I'm happy, okay? Because this is going to give you the key to understand your brain and the power you have in terms of managing it. So from the perspective of the brain, the past equals the future. If I look at my brain going through difficult past experiences equals you're going to have the same experiences in the future, so don't do it. Don't go there. It starts to create avoidance. What we experience in the past is what we assume that will happen in the future, but we know this is not true. And we can override the brain's natural tendency to avoid experiences that didn't go well and give them another go consciously. And for that, we need to override our anxiety around these things. So think about your labels. Think about what sort of labels you put on yourself. Some of these big areas are shown to impact on our confidence, right? The way we think about our age, our gender, our race, our class, disabilities, physical appearances, all of these things can impact on our confidence, okay? There's said to be confidence deficit in women, they were slowly starting to change, but we pick up these socioeconomic labels. We were, sometimes we think about our height, our looks, all sorts of labels we internalize, and these start to become part of identity. Now, we really need to realize that we are not our labels. And I want you to start examining these things, because I can tell you guys that you have picked up, like I have picked up, like all of us pick up labels throughout our lifetimes that are given to us by other people, whether we are good at something or bad at something, but we don't think about them. And I want you to stop and think about your labels, and stop and think about what sort of labels you picked up. And if you don't like it, I can tell you that you have the opportunity to change it, and you have the opportunity to change how you think about it. And that is going to be the power that is going to give you the ability to confidently move forward with whoever you are, and start to feel confident in your own skin. Start to feel happy with who you are, because you know that whatever it is that you want to change, you can change. And whatever it is that happened to you in the past, even if it's failure, even if it's experiences of real hardship, it doesn't define you. You have the power to change these things. Happiness is a state of mind. We know this. There's a Harvard researcher called Shona Kaur who does a lot of research into happiness. And we know that by comparing ourselves to people who are doing better currently than us will make us feel unhappy about where we are. But people who compare themselves down to people who may not be doing as well as they are tend to feel happier. And this is not about objective happiness. This is about subjective happiness in terms of how you choose to look at it. This is about how the bronze medalist tends to be so happy, and the silver medalist is, even though they came second, they can't feel that happiness, because the bronze medalist tends to feel that they just made it, whereas the silver medalist feels that they just missed out on something. So we know all of this, okay? But how are we going to be using this to our advantage? So my first advice to you is stop being scared of being scared. Being scared is a part of being a human being, okay? So if you don't want to feel fear about going for a new job, about going for opportunities, about being compared to other people, about, your accent, your background, your lack of knowledge, your lack of experience, your lack of education, if you don't feel frightened by these things, you are not a human being. We all do. This is it. We feel the fear. We all fear it, okay? We have fear, we have anxieties, we beat ourselves up with all sorts of things in our minds. The mastery starts when you understand that it's okay to feel the fear. It's okay, but you mustn't become paralyzed by this. You mustn't become the prisoner of your fear. You are in control. If you feel the fear of emotions, you need to understand that emotions constantly change all the time, and you are in control. Do not allow your emotions to be in control of you. You can change how your body feels. If I feel really anxious about something, if I feel really stressed about something, I can go for a quick run for 20 minutes and I can keep going until my body feels completely different. We know that aerobics exercise can help us change the way we feel. If you can't go for a 20-minute run, then you can do, jumps up and down in your kind of bedroom where you are getting ready for your interview on Zoom, and you can get yourself into that bodily state of excitement and start to reframe what fear means. When you feel anxious, you start to reframe that. Why? Because we know that the bodily sensations and symptoms of feeling nervous and anxious are very similar of excitement. Bruce Springsteen always said that before he went on stage to sing, he felt really, really anxious about coming onto stage in front of all of these people. And he said, I kept saying to myself that I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling excited, I'm really, really, really excited, to come and sing for all of these guys, really excited. And so you can start to reframe what anxiety and fear means to you. Because what's the problem with anxiety? Anxiety gets us to avoid things, okay? Pull back. We know that people with high anxiety levels do less, which means that they are not going to be giving themselves the opportunities to actually go fully into what they're actually trying to do. And they start to avoid challenges because they pull back from experiences. And as Rumi said, as you start to walk on the way appears. The way appears, the road appears with the first steps you are taking. So really start to think about this. The good news is, as I said to you, you can learn confidence. And there are two elements to this. The belief in your ability that you can do something. I can do this. And the belief in the consequences and the outcomes of taking action. I know that this can happen. Now, what sort of steps am I going to take? Okay. And you can only do this if you step out of your comfort zone. Think about the things that you feel fine doing. When you feel at ease, when you feel reasonably confident, what sort of things do you feel confident doing? Now, whatever it is that you're thinking about now is within your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is your psychological, mental, and physical space in which you feel in control of whatever it is that you're doing and the outcome of your actions, okay? You feel comfortable doing it and you got accustomed to doing it over the years, okay? Now think about something that you do not feel confident doing. Or not yet, anyway. That is going to be outside of your so-called comfort zone. That is going to be something that may cause you anxiety. And the way you can start to move through this is acknowledging that it's okay to feel that. It's okay to feel anxious. It's okay to feel any emotion, as I said. But what's not okay is to stay ruled by this emotion, okay? It's possible to change the way we feel by taking action, by changing our bodies, even our body language, by changing the way we speak to ourselves, how we think of a problem. And instead of thinking that this is a problem, we think about it as a challenge to overcome, okay? Confidence is about projecting yourself in the future into any domain, no matter how small or big. Make sure that you are not holding yourself back with labels. And so in order to become more confident, you need to take opportunities and you need to make choices and understand the consequences of those choices. And so you can make contributions towards building that future that you imagine, okay? So you really need to be thinking about all of this. And the next thing I want to talk to you about is how can we keep our thoughts in check? Now, you can keep your thoughts in check through directing your attention with self-talk. By what we're focusing on, we order our thoughts and mental images into whatever it is that's relevant and important for the task ahead. This helps us take the first step. The attention, the focus of your attention clears the way by controlling in our mind in any given moment what we actually focus on. And that is going to be impacting on our emotions, and our emotions guide our behavior and our actions. So how do we control our attention? Words are powerful instruments to control your attention and your emotions. So what sort of words do you use to get yourself into that resilient state where you know that you can do things? The words you use to speak to yourself will guide this attention. I always talk about this as two radio stations that are going on in our heads. And which one are you turning up or turning down? There's a doom and gloom FM of what can go wrong and no, I can't do this. All of us have this, okay? Switch it off. Turn it down. You don't need to listen to that. And start to listen to all of the other thoughts in your mind that are actually getting you to focus on success and expect it. Expecting success, we know, increase confidence. It lifts your mood. The anxiety is reduced. We know that we get dopamine release in our brain that helps anxiety disappear, and we can perform better. And guess what happens when we perform better? We boost our own confidence. As Woody Allen said, 80% of success is just showing up. Turn up. By turning up and not saying no to an opportunity that you really, really want, you are 80% there. And so just to sum up, guys, I really want to give you a final kind of overview of what we have been talking about. You need to start towards a habit of positivity for you to have some self-confidence. Think of problems as challenges to overcome. Start working out a plan for the first small step that you will take, and keep doing that continuously. Build a habit of positivity. Write positive statements every day about yourself, and read it on days you need to remind yourself of this. Why? You need to become your own best friend. Think about your best friend going through some challenges. What is it that you would be saying to them? You need to do the same thing to yourself. You really need to become your own best friend in your mind. Achieve small successes by setting incremental goals to yourself, because it will teach you that you can actually make a difference in your own life. And create your own gratitude journal, because it will train your brain to focus on the positives, okay? And when you feel outside of your comfort zone, remember what Professor Carol Dweck said about the growth mindset. Challenges are exciting rather than threatening. So rather than thinking, oh, I'm going to reveal my weaknesses, you say, wow, here's a chance for me to grow. Change your attitude to failure and keep going no matter what goes on. Just keep going through these challenges. Reflect and think about how you can learn from failure. And when you are reflecting on past experiences, think about what you can learn from it and move on, okay? This is all about changing your perspective. And back to the beginning, which is what I was talking to you about right at the beginning. Start to imagine, what if I could do this? What if I could create this future for myself? What if I could bring this future into reality? What is it that I need to be doing? Now, thank you guys for your attention. I really, really hope that you took some powerful things away from today's talk. That's all I had time. I could, as you probably have noticed, I could go on and talk about this for a lot longer than what we had time for today. But if you have any questions, I'm very happy to take questions now.
Thank you so much. This was a very, very insightful session, and we've already gotten some great feedback. We have a few questions here. Let's start with how to develop confidence.
How to develop confidence? Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's the question.
Okay, so what I want you to understand that there's this concept called neuroplasticity in the brain. And what do we mean by that? Neuroplasticity is something where we can consciously change our brain by the experiences we put ourselves through, okay? And changing our brain strengthens associated connections between neurons, okay? So people who feel anxious about certain things and going into difficult situations and going into kind of fear-generating situations can strengthen these neural pathways to feel more confident through practicing going into situations like this. It's called exposure to the things that you are scared of. So considering in this slide, guys, the successful way to develop confidence and starting to develop confidence is to expose yourself to situations that you feel frightened of, okay? If you feel, just to give you an example, if you feel frightened of going into a crowd or going into networking events, which is a lot of my students say that, you know, it's like, oh, I'm not very good at networking. All you need to remember is you need to ask questions. And by asking questions, the other person will talk to you, because everybody loves talking about themselves, don't they? And so you will start to listen and start to feel confident. And it becomes more and more natural for you to have these conversations in a setting that was completely unfamiliar to you, because you're training your brain that this is okay to do this and expose yourself to the things that you are actually scared of. What's your next question you chose?
So the one I chose was, what do you think is the importance of habits in developing confidence?
Okay, they're huge. That's a really great question. Thank you for that. Huge importance of habits, and this is exactly what we need to develop. We need to develop daily habits to become more and more and more confident. This is why it's really important to do some daily practices, which is what I was talking to you about, to have this kind of space for yourself where you schedule for yourself some time to think about your future and what sort of steps you're taking. So it's not enough to daydream. You need to be bringing things into action. This is all about actioning things. It's all about taking steps towards what you're trying to create. And you need to do this on a daily basis, because that will teach you that your behavior matters in terms of the steps you take towards your future. It really is very, very important to create these really useful daily habits. And if you feel anxious, for some of you, I know it's a big problem. If you feel anxious, what I suggest you guys do is to develop a routine of doing aerobics exercise daily. It doesn't matter whether you are doing, whether you're doing something, anything you can do that raises your heart rate on a daily basis, because your body will learn that it's okay to feel a raised heart rate, either through running or through doing any sort of aerobics exercise that raises your heart rate, even swimming or whatever it is that you like doing. But just get your body used to feeling that, because it will start to adjust what normality is for it. Because if it's not used to doing aerobics, any sort of aerobics exercise, your body will make you feel out of control if you're feeling this anxiety, okay? But also remember that anxiety is a very similar feeling to excitement. I'm excited about this interview. I'm excited about this interview. And you really need to keep that mindset going, that you need to reframe, you need to refocus on what is helping you in the moment, rather than to give in to this fear, because then you will just avoid things. So keep your mind focused and create these really useful daily habits.
Thank you so much. That actually answers a few questions people had about anxiety as well. So the next question is, how do you build confidence and humility at the same time? Because sometimes confidence can be misunderstood with being boastful in other people's eyes.
That's right. So we know that this is a difference between kind of self-esteem and kind of overconfidence, right? So we know that people who think and talk about themselves in that way, in a way that, you know, they come across overly confident, they tend to kind of trigger certain reactions in other people, right? Overly confident people tend to use this as something to propel them forward. And guess what? It works. Okay, it works for them. This is why it's really difficult, because you think, well, there's some people who are just overly confident. You look at people in politics, you look at people in business making decisions who are overly confident, and sometimes they make the wrong decisions because they're so convinced of their own ideas, and it can in fact be a huge problem for people. And sometimes they make terrible decisions. Look at Brexit in the UK. You know, overly confident decision making got the whole UK to this situation. However, these people are very unlikely to give this up, because this is what they feel is helping them move forward. So there's a balance to strike here. Actually, confidence, you can feel confident in certain areas, and you can feel completely out of your kind of comfort zones in other parts of, you know, kind of knowledge or science or practices. It's really important to kind of continue feeling this kind of humility that we all have when we approach certain situations. And if you feel confident, you know, it's okay for other people to be challenging that. It's okay for other people to debate and to ask questions and to push back. You mustn't feel that it's a personal attack on you. Sometimes people just have different ways of kind of dealing with things, different opinions, and it's okay for them to express that. It's all okay. You need to know that.
Great. Thank you. So we have a few questions on how to overcome stage fear.
Okay, well, I talked about that a little bit. We don't have a lot of time for this, but this is what helped me. I'm going to give you my example, okay? I deep down believe that no person in their right mind wants to stand up in front of hundreds and hundreds of people to be judged, okay? So when they say, do you want to do a talk, or do you want to do this, or do you want to, you know, play music in front of 30,000 people where they're going to be judging your performance, no person in their right mind is going to say, yeah, I want people to look at me and judge me and put labels on me, and I really want that. Nobody will say that. What happens is this. I did this when I started. If you talk to me back in my late teens, early 20s, I would have told you that you were completely out of your mind. I was never going to do talks like this. I was never going to stand up in front of hundreds of people to be judged. That's what my view was when I was really young. Today, I know that I do this because what got me into this is because I feel that I have something to share with you guys and something to share with the people I'm talking to that will hopefully every single tiny little ripple effect that I can create with you guys taking something away from these talks will help you start to change your life in a way that your life becomes better as a result of this. So I stand up and I do this because I believe that you can take something away from this. So when my focus is on what I'm talking about, I think about this from your perspective. What is it that you would like from this talk? What is it that I can give you that you can possibly use to make your life better? My focus, so the short answer is this: you have got to take your focus of yourself. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about your ego and how you look and what sort of things people think about you, because that's where people get stuck. This is what paralyzes you. If you are asked to stand up in front of people, if you keep thinking about yourself and how to reflect on you and your ego will paralyze you in this process. What you really need to think about is your attention needs to be focused on how you contribute to the people you are listening, that are listening to you, to your music, to your talk, to whatever it is that you're doing, to your performance. If you're in a theater, I work with celebrities who perform all the time. Their focus needs to be on the audience, on what the audience takes away from what they're actually doing. And their focus is external to themselves, is not on themselves, guys. That is something that helped me, and it will help you as well, because you need to take your focus away from yourself. It's not about you. Okay, that's what I really want you to understand.
Thank you so much. I'm afraid we're running out of time now. I know there are lots of questions and everyone has a lot to say, but you can feel free to reach out to us if you have further questions. But I am afraid that we are running a little over time.
I know, lovely.
But thank you so much, Professor. I'm sure that everyone, gained a lot from this. I certainly did. And it was a very, very interactive session. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I'm reading all of these comments. It's like, oh, these are fantastic, guys. Thank you very much. I really hope that I could contribute something that you could actually start to look at this differently. Confidence is something that we just work on all the time. It is between your two ears. This is where you're managing this. Keep going for it. Be scared and do it anyway. Okay, that's my advice to you, because we all are, and we all need to keep going, guys. That's how we are going to make the world a better place. Thank you for your time today, all of you. And thank you guys for setting this talk up.
Thank you so much. And once again, the references are in the chat for everyone. You can just quickly scroll up and save that. And if you missed it out, you can reach out. We'll send that to you again. But thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a lovely day. Bye-bye. Bye.